I'm delighted to, in fact, I'm honored, truth be told, to introduce our next speaker, Ma Jian, by name. He has come to us from Beijing. I suspect he wins the award, or one of the awards, for coming the longest distances to this conference. By title, Ma Jian is the founding director of the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs, but that doesn't begin to capture who he is, what he does, and the impact he's having, not simply on China, but on the world. Since the publication of his book, China's Water Crisis in 1999, he literally has been in the forefront of marshaling and driving change in environmental practices, not only across China, but truly across the world. His interest is broad. He has been in the forefront of impacting government action, impacting corporate action, and mobilizing and impacting consumer knowledge, attitudes, and behavior, including equipping consumers to be wise in their consumption of products that may, somewhere along the supply chain, be tainted by bad practices of their manufacturers. If my commentary on him isn't sufficient to warm you up, he was named as one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. Last year, he was named as one of the most creative people in business across the world by Fast Company. And last year, he also was the recipient of the Goldman Environmental Prize, a very prestigious and rarely given prize for his leadership in the environmental effort. As social marketers in this conference, we've all acknowledged our interest in looking to the future. I think China is going to be hugely important in our future. No one can deny that. And I think environmental issues and environmental challenges are also going to be important in our future. So we couldn't have a better keynote speaker than Ma Jian.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom, for your gracious introduction. Today I'm very glad to have this chance to share with you some of the experience in China to use transparency and internet, social media to advance the environmental course to promote pollution control in our country. The last 30 years have seen tremendous growth in China, but it comes at a cost. We are experiencing some growth pain. This map shows how a very large area of our country have been troubled by the polluted air quality, and which exposed hundreds of millions of urban residents to badly polluted air. People are using their own ways, posted on our version of Twitter, the Weibo or microblog, to just show this one photographer, from his window. Every day he's taking at the same time one picture just for 365 days, just to show, in certain days it could be really different, the view. Sometimes it's quite invisible. And some of the gurus, like this one, Mr. Pan Shiyi, who owns 15 million followers on the Weibo, just every morning for 2 years, continue to post all this PM 2.5 monitoring data on his Weibo, despite all kind of pressure. And water pollution is equally bad. We are facing some of the, recently the dead pigs in Shanghai has made some news, but on the Weibo, people have more creative way to try to present it in a different way, arousing a lot of attention. And sadly to say that not just the air and water, but the soil got contaminated each year, causing the 50 million tons of food crops contaminated by heavy metals. All this will have its health consequences. All this will have consequences on our limited resources being destroyed and consumed unsustainably. And it also leads to an impact on our social stability. And thousands of collective incidents caused by the pollution have disrupted some part of our society. So when we look into the issue, the real barriers, we believe it's not just the lack of technology or even money, it's the lack of motivation. Because of the weak enforcement, because of the difficulties in filing environmental lawsuit, the companies would rather pay fines year after year without solving their problem because the cost of violations remains to be too low. So we believe we need extensive public participation. But people need to be informed before they can get involved. With that in mind, we built, right after we found IPE, the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs in 2006, the first project we did is to create a national pollution database, give people access to the environmental quality data, the amount of discharge, and also a list of polluters in all the 31 provinces and 300 cities in our country. And of course, this pollution records have started. We started with 2,500 of them in 2006, and today that has topped 120,000. This has drawn more attention, and of course, we tapped into this dramatic growth of explosive growth of internet in China. China leapfrogged into the IT information age. When we started in 2006 in China, we have some 130 million web users, and today that number have topped 560 million. And among them, half of them have their Weibo account or social media users now. And we want people to learn that, to understand that transparency has been used in other parts of the world to try to promote pollution control. It started in America and then extended to this part of the world, Canada, Mexico, and now people can access this information, and that leads to substantial emission reduction. And in Europe, in Japan, all these industrialized countries have this mandatory requirements for corporations to disclose their discharge data to the public. But in China, up to now, we still lack a strong legislation to make that mandatory requirement. We decided that we're going to promote legislation, but in the meantime, we need to launch a public intervention into this. So we launched a program called Take a Picture to Locate a Polluter, because now we take advantage of the development of smartphones, and so one by one, our partners, our friends, and even just ordinary web users, based on a list that we collected from the Ministry of Environmental Protection of this a rather long list of 15,000 major polluters in China, responsible for 65% of the emission. The people, all these people can take a picture and upload that on the microblog, on the social media, and then we can dot them on the digital map. So a map of polluters have been created finally. These are all major polluters responsible for air, water, and heavy metal emission. So when we overlay that with the air quality map, people can see that why it's so important to try to control these major emitters like the coal power plant, like the cement factory, and all this iron and steel, and chemical and petrochemical. And then water pollution, people can see why in certain areas the rivers runs black from the source to the end. And through this, people can view all this digital map when they open the satellite picture, when they open the digital map. So people access the information, but how to motivate change? We decided we need to tap into the consuming power, because China is not just the factory of the world, it is a rising consumption power. And with that in mind, in 2007, 21 NGOs have launched a Green Choice initiative calling for the consumers to pay attention to corporate behavior and to pressure major brands to green their supply chain in China. And today, this Green Choice Alliance network of NGOs have been expanded from 21 to 47, actually. And the Green Choice is a special way of green consumption. It's not like the consumers working directly, the public working directly on the polluting factories. We're going through a media. We're going through the brand, because in China so far, the number of consumers that we can mobilize and this social power is still limited. And so we need to use the brand as the fulcrum, if you want to see, and use the green supply chain as a lever to leverage change of the large number of suppliers. So we come together to pressure the brands, to urge the brands to commit not to source from polluters in China. Before, they say they don't know who are polluting, who are not. But today, that excuse is no longer there. If they type in the keyword of any given supplier, they will instantly know whether that company has a government-sourced records of violations. And that have triggered a group of brands who decided to proactively started using that to track the performance, not just their own operations, but their supply chain in our country. And then 2010, we decided to engage the whole industry. We picked the IT industry as the first one because we need to benchmark, to prompt those those who don't want to face the issue to take action. So we built up the link between the records of pollution by all these factories with 29 IT brands that year. And after a month of interaction, 28 have responded and gradually be willing to take action. But one of them, Apple, said they have a long-term policy not to disclose. So we have to look deeper into their supply chain. And through the investigation, we found that workers got injured and hurt, and all these rivers and lakes got contaminated, and the communities got impacted in the process. And of course, this globalized manufacturing and sourcing caused this disconnection. So their voice, their message cannot be heard by the users of all these fancy gadgets. So we turned them into, turn these findings into reports and into videos, and upload that on the internet, over the social media, and people responded. The consumers wrote letters, they posted their own image, grained a cell phone image on internet, and eventually the other stakeholders, not just the environmentalists or activists, but also even the investors, the telecom companies, and the government agencies weighed in. And together, I think finally, the brand decided to change and started an engagement with the NGOs in China after we published our second report. And that has leads to some remarkable corrective action. In this, beside this lake, we saw some, in the middle of this lake, we saw some bad pollution, and through testing, we found that heavy metals have been got into the ooze and lake bottom. So we thought for generations that won't be cleaned up. But then, the second year, when Apple used its sourcing power to motivate change, this company, in our third-party audit, under the supervision of local NGOs, we found that this company had been trying to dredge the lake just to get rid of the metals. It's quite an engineering wonder, and the project is still going on. It's helpful, and they also uplift all this, elevate all the underground pipe above the ground so that they can prevent further leakage of wastewater into the environment. And obviously, we found that ranking and scorecard, it's helpful. When we put them together, we witness a change of behavior by the brands, from non-responsive. At the first, after the first 1 month, only 8 of them would even just say, "We received your letter." But then it started to change, and today, all these brands, many of them, most of them have moved forward, and they have been moved from just a very passive or non-responsive passive or to something more proactive, and moving further upstream into their supply chain to tackle the real sources of the problem. And we identify some best practice, good practice like Siemens, like Panasonic, like Apple, and Microsoft, and many others now are taking their efforts. And when the IT industry is kind of moving by itself, and to compare their list with our list regularly, many of the brands, we moved into the second industry, the textile industry. This industry have been causing a discharge of 2.5 billion tons of textile wastewater, causing which is a major cause of the contamination of some of the rivers and lakes in our densely populated coastal regions. And through our efforts, in some cases, we also have to, just like Apple, Marks and Spencer, and Disney, at the beginning, not quite willing to face the issue, and some more research, some more similar type of engagement, and public event, those with the students doing their part of the work to try to cross their message to the brands, and eventually there's a change. There's a change, and we have seen this. Many of this textile brands started to grow more proactive, and this is not the most updated ranking. So you could visit our website to get the new ranking and check their records. And among these brands, 50 of them, we also identify some good practice by companies like H&M and Nike and Walmart. Walmart have been, for example, during the past over 2 years, have been continued, nearly 3 years, continued to compare every month, compare their list of 10,000 suppliers with our list of more than 100,000 records of violations. And every time when they identify problems, the contract could get stuck in their computer system. So that drove the companies to come to us, sometimes with a great urgency, just saying that we need to resolve the issue. And so far, these efforts have led to 880 polluters on our list to approach the NGOs to make disclosure about what went wrong, how they try to fix their problem, and quite many of them received third-party audit by the professionals under the supervision of local NGOs, and in some cases, the local communities representatives. And all these records have been publicly available on our website. But there are still 120,000 records of violations. We need to expand our efforts, our campaign in a much bigger way. And all this success are, if we can call it a success, but it's all based on the progress made in China on environmental transparency by the government. But at this moment, the level of transparency is still very limited, and we need to do more. So together with our partner, the Natural Resource Defense Council, we developed an index called Pollution Information Transparency Index, or PITI. For 4 years, we've been assessing the performance of 113 cities, major cities in China. We found that ranking, again, we found ranking and scorecard is helpful. Is help to promote a behavior change, even with the government agencies. And for 4 years, we found that the score, the average score, have come up from have risen from 31 to 42. But of course, out of 100 points. So it's still, on average, a failure, fail to pass, because it's a 100-point system. And we need as I said, a much larger scale of efforts. So 3 weeks ago, together with 24 NGOs and industrial associations, we launched a total transparency initiative. We hope that our hope is that now most of these 15,000 major polluters have actually installed online monitoring system. We want the real-time disclosure of this online monitoring data to the public. We believe that only the real-time disclosure could help to break the protection given by the local government officials to the polluters, because they simply would not have time to do that. Several local government, just very few have tried this out, but it's quite successful with. So we trust that this should be the way to go, and in the future, on the digital map like this, people can click on these dots and access the real-time monitoring data, and of course their annual discharge data and all these reports. And we hope that we can develop functions like changing the color of all these pollution sources, for those who are broke the laws and regulations, and bring them under a full level of public supervision. Just to end this talk, I want to say that in China, the environmental challenge is real, it's severe. It matters not just to this generation, but the generations to come. And we still have gaps in our governance, like the weak enforcement, like the judicial system need to be improved so that we can have real environmental lawsuit being filed. But the social progress made in our country, including the expansion of government environmental transparency, the rising public awareness, the increasing activities by communities and NGOs, have created opportunity for the stakeholders to come to work together. And I really appreciate this chance to attend this meeting because I learned so much more about social marketing. I'm no expert on social marketing, and I guess, Tom, your team invited me because some of our efforts comes close to social marketing, and I believe that in the future we need to better use this tool, because we need to reach out to such a large number of audience, especially to the public. So we need, I think together we still have chance to overcome this massive pollution problem in our country. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jeff, do we have time for a couple of questions? Or, all right, so, Majan, I'm going to challenge you. In 2 years, when this meeting is held again, I hope you'll come back and we'll all be able to discuss how you have applied social marketing and making your efforts even stronger yet. Yeah. Are there any questions for Majan? It's hard to see, the lights are in my eyes.
So
here's one
there,
over here.
one there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello. Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation. Great work. I was wondering, what kind of challenges did you face from the corporate sector? I mean, maybe after a while when the big companies got on board, there must have been some momentum for others to follow. But what were the, at least at the initial stages, what were the challenges that you faced or continue to face from the, I'm not even talking about government, but just the corporate sector.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, corporate, I think, distrust. There's a distrust, there's a lack of understanding about even what NGOs means in our country. NGOs is relatively a new issue. We're still in our infancy. So when those companies one by one started coming to our office, quite some of them sat there for hours. They just couldn't figure out, why we spend our efforts to do this. If you don't want my money, then what's the point? To compile all this my my records. And so I think there's a curve there. There's a learning curve. It's an uphill battle. And of course, some of our local factories, companies from Hong Kong and Taiwan as well, they don't have a very highly visible or valuable brands, so they're not sensitive to the public pressure. But they could be the major polluting sources. So our way of name and shame, I think, works better with those big brands. So the reason that we need to go through the brands to reach out to the local factories is like this. And but this only, the Green Supply Chain program only works with the fast consumer product manufacturers, not the energy and sometimes pollution intensive, those raw material energy type of companies. So we need to develop other tools of leverage. At this moment, we have just we're going to launch another program called Green Stock Market. So basically, allow the investors to type in the ticker code of any listed company and pull out the entire pollution records of that company. You know, all the subsidiaries and joint ventures, and in this way, we can tackle those companies, you know, with which are highly dependent on the capital market. So we'll test whether that should work with those much bigger companies. But of course, we are also a bit nervous because some of them are highly, highly powerful in our country. Thank you. I saw one hand there. Back there.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Linton from Advanced Behaviour Change. What a fascinating presentation you've just given us, and what a true inspiration you are. The transparency of your data is immense. I think it's something that as social marketers we all aspire to have. I'm interested, however, though, you mentioned that there are officials, government officials, that protect bad practice. Have you done any work as yet to understand what their behaviours are, what the benefits back to them are of that protection? Yeah,
thank you. Yes, in our country, you know, I think all these years we've been trying to figure out why, you know, the government failed to manage to push this polluters to change. I think you know, many people have seen the point that the violation cost is so low, so they just continue to suggest that the penalty fines should be increased. But what we found is that you know, when the EPA, REPB, environmental protection agencies are under the pressure of the local government, they really cannot do much. You know, when they try to enforce the rules and regulations, the head of that bureau could be removed by the local government, and so they just cannot do it. So if you give them more power, then they could you actually just increase their rent-seeking capacity, and so it tied into those issues of corruption and all this. So I think it's not an easy issue to resolve, and so that the reason that I take transparency as something so important is because, you know, I think when everything got put under the sunlight, then it makes everyone kind of feel easier. So no one's kind of feel obliged that they have to do something under the table. At this moment, you know, quite sometimes it's not the polluters come to us. Yeah, they did come to us, sometimes unhappy and sometimes even with some threatening tone. But sometimes, you know, in some cases, they got their contacts at the government to come to us to try to pressure us. I mean, they got the habit. You know, when they have any problems, they go to their contact within the government. So they come to us. But the reason that we can sustain our work is because from the very beginning, we understand that we have a local national condition. We have a local condition that data have been considered as sensitive, and NGOs consider to be not quite understood by the rest of the society. So we decided we need to make a compromise to use government-sourced data only from the beginning. So this created a lot of troubles. We collect all this information, but many times we can only use them as clues to search for government-sourced data. We cannot upload them. But at the end, when all these powerful groups come to us, including the local agencies, I think it saved us because when they reveal the data, it comes from government-sourced monitoring, government monitoring from the government document, so everyone feel more at ease. Then we created a path towards solution. It's not a dead end. We're not taking delight to expose their problems. We have no kind of agenda to undermine any companies. We respect their contribution to our society. So we created a path to a solution. They could solve their problems through that path, so they realized that probably it's easier to do it that way. And we have an NGO coalition. At the end of the day, when some of them very persistent just try to pressure us, we said, the decision can only be made by this coalition of 46 NGOs. They all need to say something. So I cannot make the decision, so you need to go to the other 40-some NGOs, and no one would want to be bothered to do it that way. So they just go back telling the polluter that it's probably easier for you to make some disclosure than for me to go to that 40-some NGOs. So all these ways we have, all these years we have been trying different ways to sustain our work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.